My father is a respected judge, known for his harsh sentences but unimpeachable integrity. I just found a hidden compartment in his desk containing a collection of untraceable burner phones and a ledger detailing payoffs from a crime syndicate to ensure their rivals receive maximum sentences in his courtroom. The leather of his chair groans under my weight, a sound I've known my whole life, but it's alien now. Everything in this room, his sacred study, feels alien. The scent of old paper and lemon polish that always comforted me now feels like the clawing sweetness of a funeral home. My own breath sounds like a stranger's, loud and ragged in the oppressive silence. A tremor starts in my hands, and I have to place the small black ledger back on the mahogany desk before I drop it. The burner phones, a neat stack of cheap, disposable plastic, sit beside it like a row of silent, accusing witnesses. They feel cold to the touch, colder than they should be, as if they've absorbed the chill of the secrets they hold. For a moment, my mind refuses to connect the dots, desperately trying to find an innocent explanation for this cache of corruption tucked away behind a false panel in my father's desk. Maybe it's evidence from an old case. Maybe he's working undercover, a secret hero. But the ledger kills that hope with cold, hard numbers. My father, the Honorable Marcus Thorne, a man I've idolized my entire life, a man whose public persona is carved from granite and principle. I can still hear his voice from the podium at my law school's orientation banquet just last year, a resonant baritone that could silence a packed courtroom. The law, he'd said, his gaze sweeping over us, the next generation of attorneys and public servants, is not merely a set of rules. It is a sacred trust, a promise we make to society that justice is blind, that integrity is our only currency. I remember beaming with pride, my friends slapping my back. That's my dad. Now his words echo in my head as a monstrous, mocking lie. The ledger sits open to a random page, a testament to his real currency. Names I recognized from the headlines over the past 5 years, men from the Costello family, their rivals. Next to them, columns of numbers and dates, aligning perfectly with the weeks leading up to their trials. 10,000 for a denied bail motion, 50,000 for inadmissible evidence, 200,000 for a life sentence. A cold nausea coils in my stomach. The Costello case. I remember it vividly. My father was lauded in the press for his unyielding stance, for putting away a man the media had dubbed a monster. I'd written a paper on the legal precedents he'd set during that trial. I'd defended his every ruling to my professors, puffed up with second-hand righteousness. All of it. Every stern lecture on ethics, every quiet dinner conversation about the burden of his office, was a performance. My whole life has been an audience of one, watching a play I never knew was staged. The click of the garage door opening downstairs sends a jolt of pure adrenaline through me. He's home. My heart hammers against my ribs, a frantic, trapped bird. My hands, clumsy with panic, shove the phones back into the dark recess. I close the ledger, the brittle crackle of its pages sounding like a gunshot in the quiet room. I fumble with the false panel, my fingers slipping on the smooth wood it won't catch. I can hear his footsteps on the slate floor of the entryway, the familiar, heavy tread that used to mean safety. Finally, the panel clicks into place, the seam vanishing into the ornate carving of the desk. I stand up too quickly, my head spinning. I look around the room, my eyes darting, trying to see it as he would. Is anything out of place? The leather-bound book I'd used as an excuse to be in here is still on the corner of the desk. My fingerprints are everywhere. I wipe my sweaty palms on my jeans, my mind a blank roaring static. The footsteps are on the stairs now. I have to move. I have to look normal. I grab the book, my movements stiff and unnatural. I turn to leave just as the study door swings open.
He stands there, framed in the doorway, still in his suit, his ties slightly loosened. He looks tired, the lines around his eyes deeper than they were this morning. For a split second, he is just my father, home from a long day. Then his eyes, the same ones that can dissect a witness on the stand, land on me. A flicker of something I can't read crosses his face. Surprise? Suspicion? "Ethan," he says, his voice gravelly. "Still up?" I swallow, my throat suddenly bone dry. I hold up the book as if it's a shield. Just grabbing a book from my torts class, I manage to say, my own voice a reedy imitation of itself. He nods slowly, his gaze lingering for a second too long before moving to his desk, the place where the poison lies hidden. "Don't stay up too late," he says, turning to loosen his cufflinks. "You look pale." I just nod, unable to speak, and walk past him, the clean scent of his soap and the faint hint of his cologne washing over me, a scent that now smells like deceit. I don't stop until I'm in my own room, the door locked behind me, the heavy law book feeling as radioactive in my hands as the secrets I now carry. The heavy torts book thuds onto my desk, the sound swallowed by the thick carpet. I stand in the center of my room, a space that suddenly feels too small, like a cage. Every familiar object is a ghost of a life that ended an hour ago. The framed photo of my father and me on a fishing trip when I was 10, his arms slung around my shoulder, a proud grin on his face. The academic awards on the shelf, each one earned chasing his approval. My whole identity, my entire future was built on the foundation of that man, and I just watched it crumble into dust. I pressed the heels of my hands into my eyes, trying to force the image of the ledger out of my head, but it's seared there. The neat, precise handwriting, his handwriting, cataloging the destruction of lives with the same detached care he used to balance his checkbook. I can hear the house settling around me, the low hum of the refrigerator, the distant rumble of a car passing on the street. Mundane sounds from a world that is no longer mine. My phone buzzes on the nightstand, a violent, intrusive sound. I snatch it up, my heart leaping into my throat. For a wild second, I think it's him, that somehow he knows. But it's a text from Maya. "Everything okay? You went quiet." Followed by another. "Tell your dad I said his closing argument in the Richardson appeal was brilliant. We watched it in class." I stare at the glowing screen, the words blaring. Brilliant. She called him brilliant. The nausea from his study returns, a bitter wave rising in my throat. I want to tell her. I want to scream it into the phone, to shatter her pristine image of him, to have someone else in this nightmare with me. But how? What would I even say? My father, the man you admire, the pillar of justice, sells sentences to the highest bidder. It sounds like a line from a bad movie, too grotesque to be real. I type and delete a dozen replies before settling on a lie. "Yeah, sorry, just buried in reading, long day." The response is immediate. "Okay, get some rest. Love you." Love you. The words feel like a judgment. How can I accept her love, or anyone's, when I'm living inside this monstrous lie? The fishing trip. The memory of it ambushes me, sharp and vivid. It was a cold autumn morning, the mist rising off the lake like steam. My hands were numb, and I couldn't bait my own hook. He'd done it for me, his large, warm hands guiding my clumsy ones, his voice a low, patient rumble. "The secret, Ethan," he'd said, casting his line in a perfect, graceful arc, "is not about catching the biggest fish. It's about respecting the process. It's about integrity."
Anyone can lie about the one that got away, but you know the truth, and that's what matters. He had looked at me then, his eyes clear and steady, and I had felt it, a profound sense of rightness, of learning a lesson that was about more than just fishing. It was a lesson about life, about character. Now I see that moment for what it was. Not a lesson, but a manipulation. He wasn't teaching me about integrity. He was perfecting his own disguise, using his own son as a mirror to reflect the noble image he'd constructed. The calm I had always admired was not the peace of a clear conscience, but the cold composure of a man who could compartmentalize his own corruption. The anger comes then, hot and clean, burning away some of the fear. It's a clarifying rage. I can't stay in this room. I can't just let this lie fester inside me until it poisons everything. I need to know more.
I need to understand the scale of it, the depth of the rot. The ledger. The phones. They're still there, tucked away in the dark, waiting. The thought of going back into that study makes my skin crawl, but the thought of not knowing is worse. I have to see it all. Every name, every date, every dollar. I have to hold the proof in my hands again, not as a panicked child, but as a witness. I listen at my door, my ear pressed against the cool wood. I hear the faint sound of the television downstairs click off. A few minutes later, the pipes in the wall groan as he runs the water in the master bathroom. Then, the familiar, soft creak of the floorboards in the hallway as he walks to his bedroom. Silence. The house is asleep, but I am wide awake. I turn the lock on my door, the click deafeningly loud in the stillness, and pull it open, stepping out into the darkened hall. The path back to my father's study feels like a mile-long walk into enemy territory. The heavy Torts book thuds onto my desk, the sound swallowed by the thick carpet. I stand in the center of my room, a space that suddenly feels too small, like a cage. Every familiar object is a ghost of a life that ended an hour ago. The framed photo of my father and me on a fishing trip when I was 10. His arm slung around my shoulder, a proud grin on his face. The academic awards on the shelf, each one earned chasing his approval. My whole identity, my entire future, was built on the foundation of that man, and I just watched it crumble into dust. I pressed the heels of my hands into my eyes, trying to force the image of the ledger out of my head, but it seared there. The neat, precise handwriting, his handwriting, cataloging the destruction of lives with the same detached care he used to balance his checkbook. I can hear the house settling around me, the low hum of the refrigerator, the distant rumble of a car passing on the street. Mundane sounds from a world that is no longer mine. My phone buzzes on the nightstand, a violent, intrusive sound. I snatch it up, my heart leaping into my throat. For a wild second, I think it's him, that somehow he knows. But it's a text from Maya. "Everything okay? You went quiet." Followed by another, "Tell your dad I said his closing argument in the Richardson appeal was brilliant. We watched it in class." I stare at the glowing screen, the words blurring. Brilliant. She called him brilliant. The nausea from his study returns, a bitter wave rising in my throat. I want to tell her. I want to scream it into the phone, to shatter her pristine image of him, to have someone else in this nightmare with me. But how? What would I even say? My father, the man you admire, the pillar of justice, sells sentences to the highest bidder? It sounds like a line from a bad movie, too grotesque to be real. I type and delete a dozen replies before settling for a lie. "Yeah, sorry, just buried in reading. Long day." The response is immediate. "Okay, get some rest. Love you."
Love you. The words feel like a judgment. How can I accept her love, or anyone's, when I'm living inside this monstrous lie? The fishing trip. The memory of it ambushes me, sharp and vivid. It was a cold autumn morning, the mist rising off the lake like steam. My hands were numb, and I couldn't bait my own hook. He'd done it for me, his large, warm hands guiding my clumsy ones, his voice a low, patient rumble. "The secret, Ethan," he'd said, casting his line in a perfect, graceful arc, "isn't about catching the biggest fish. It's about respecting the process. It's about integrity. Anyone can lie about the one that got away, but you know the truth, and that's what matters." He had looked at me then, his eyes clear and steady, and I had felt it, a profound sense of rightness, of learning a lesson that was about more than just fishing. It was a lesson about life, about character. Now I see that moment for what it was. Not a lesson, but a manipulation. He wasn't teaching me about integrity. He was perfecting his own disguise, using his own son as a mirror to reflect the noble image he'd constructed. The calm I had always admired was not the peace of a clear conscience, but the cold composure of a man who could compartmentalize his own corruption. The anger comes then, hot and clean, burning away some of the fear. It's a clarifying rage. I can't stay in this room. I can't just let this lie fester inside me until it poisons everything. I need to know more. I need to understand the scale of it, the depth of the rot. The ledger, the phones, they're still there, tucked away in the dark, waiting. The thought of going back into that study makes my skin crawl, but the thought of not knowing is worse. I have to see it all. Every name, every date, every dollar. I have to hold the proof in my hands again, not as a panicked child, but as a witness. I listen at my door, my ear pressed against the cool wood. I hear the faint sound of the television downstairs click off. A few minutes later, the pipes in the wall groan as he runs the water in the master bathroom. Then the familiar, soft creak of the floorboards in the hallway as he walks to his bedroom. Silence. The house is asleep, but I am wide awake. I turn the lock on my door, the click deafeningly loud in the stillness, and pull it open, stepping out into the darkened hall. The path back to my father's study feels like a mile-long walk into enemy territory. Each step I take on the polished hardwood floor is a calculated risk. I move with the slowness I didn't know I possessed, my bare feet making no sound, my body tensed for the inevitable creak of a floorboard that will give me away. The house is a different creature at night, full of shadows that stretch and writhe in the slivers of moonlight cutting through the tall windows in the foyer. The grandfather clock at the bottom of the stairs chimes the half hour, its deep, resonant tone vibrating through the floor and up my legs. A sound so familiar, it has always been a comfort. But now it feels like a countdown. My own heartbeat thunders in my ears, a frantic, panicked drumbeat against the steady, indifferent rhythm of the clock. The air is cold, carrying the faint, clean scent of the lemon polish our housekeeper uses, a scent I now associate with the pristine surface of a lie. I reach the study door, and my hand hovers over the cold brass knob. This feels like the true point of no return. Opening this door again, by my own choice, is an admission. I am no longer an accidental discoverer of a secret. I am an investigator of a crime. I turn the knob, the internal mechanics clicking with excruciating clarity. The heavy oak door swings inward without a sound, a testament to my father's insistence on quality and maintenance. The room is a cavern of darkness, darker than the hallway, the heavy drapes drawn tight. It smells of leather and old paper and his cologne, a scent that clings to the very air he breathes. It's the smell of my childhood, of safety, of him. A gag on the memory. I don't dare turn on a light. I pull out my phone, shielding its screen with my body and turning the brightness down to its lowest setting. The faint glow is just enough to navigate by, casting long, distorted shadows that make the familiar armchairs look like lurking beasts. I move to the desk, my path so ingrained I could walk it blind. My fingers find the edge of the mahogany, tracing the familiar grain until they reach the spot. I press down. The hidden panel gives way with a soft, satisfying click. There it is, the neat stack of cash, the burner phones, and the ledger, lying on top like a final verdict. This time, my hands don't shake. The rage has burned the trembling out of me, leaving a cold, hard resolve in its place. I lift the ledger, its weight familiar now, but I don't open it. I already know what's inside. The names and numbers are branded onto my memory. It's the phones that draw me in. They are the active part of this, the live wire. A ledger is a record of past sins, but these phones are a direct line to the present. I pick one up. It's a cheap black plastic thing, anonymous and untraceable, the kind you see in movies just before they're snapped in half and tossed off a bridge. It feels alien in my hand, a piece of a world I've only ever read about in case law. How many calls has he made on this? How many lives were negotiated away with a few quiet words spoken into this cheap microphone? The thought makes my stomach clench. A ledger can be explained away, dismissed as a fantasy, a draft for a novel, some bizarre flight of fancy. But a conversation is undeniable. I have to know. I press the power button on the side, holding my breath. For a second, nothing happens. I press it again, longer this time, and the screen flickers to life, a generic, pixelated logo blooming in the dark. The phone makes a low electronic chime as it boots up, a sound so loud in the crushing silence of the house that I flinch, my heart seizing in my chest. I press the phone against my stomach to muffle the noise, my eyes wide, staring at the study door, listening for any sound from upstairs. Nothing. Only the hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. I look back at the screen. A generic background, a low battery icon, full signal bars. It's active. It's real. And then, as if summoned by my very thoughts, the phone violently vibrates in my hand, a sudden shocking buzz that feels like an electric shock. The screen lights up with a new notification, a text message. My blood runs cold as I read the words, stark white against the black screen, a message not meant for me, but one that seals my father's fate and throws my own into chaos. It's from a contact simply labeled C. And it says, "Heard there was a problem with the Rivera verdict. Need to meet. Usual place." My fingers lock, the cheap plastic of the phone digging into my palm. C. Rivera. The name slams into me with the force of a physical blow. Marco Rivera. It was all over the news a month ago. A drug trafficking case my father presided over. The prosecution's evidence was thin, circumstantial at best, or so the paper said. I remember watching my father on the evening news, leaving the courthouse, his face a mask of solemn duty. He spoke of the difficult but necessary work of justice, of taking a dangerous man off the streets. He'd sentenced Rivera to 30 years, the maximum. A problem with the verdict. The words on the screen don't just suggest corruption, they mock the very idea of justice. They confirm that a man's life, his freedom, was a commodity to be bought and sold from this very desk, negotiated over a burner phone. The casualness of the message is what chills me the most. Need to meet. Usual place. It's business as usual, a snag in the transaction. My thumb hovers over the screen, a millimeter from the glowing message.
Part of me, a wild, reckless part, wants to type back, "Who is this? What problem?" But the thought is insane, suicidal. I don't know the rules of this game. I don't even know who the players are. I swipe away from the message, my heart hammering against my ribs, and tap the contacts icon. It's a ghost town. Just 3 entries, each a single cryptic initial, CMS. No names, no numbers, just sterile, anonymous letters. I check the call log. A handful of calls, all to or from C, all in the past week, none lasting more than 2 minutes. These are not conversations, they are transactions. Quick, sterile exchanges of information. I feel like I'm holding a venomous snake, its poison seeping through the plastic and into my skin. This phone is a direct line into the rot, and it's ringing in my hand. I need more. The context is in the ledger. I set the burner phone down, its screen dark, and pull the heavy book towards me. Using my own phone's dim light, I flip through the pages, the crisp paper whispering in the silence. The entries are meticulous, written in my father's familiar, precise script. I scan the recent dates, my eyes jumping from name to case number to dollar amount. And there it is, Rivera. The entry is dated the day before the verdict was announced. The case number matches. Beside it, a figure is written, $250,000. $250,000 to trade 30 years of a man's life. The payment was routed through a shell corporation I've never heard of, Scion Ventures. It's all here. The crime, the payment, the proof. The text message wasn't about a past deal gone wrong. It was live fire. An active problem in an ongoing criminal enterprise. My father isn't just a corrupt judge.
He's a partner. A floorboard groans overhead. I freeze. Every muscle rigid. The sound is faint, but unmistakable. The old board outside my father's bedroom door, the one he always steps on when he gets up in the night. My blood turns to ice. I kill the light on my phone, plunging the room into absolute blackness. The ledger is open on the desk, the burner phone beside it. I am a statue in the dark, my ears straining, listening for the next sound. A footstep on the stairs, the clearing of a throat, anything. But there is only silence. A deep, heavy silence that feels more threatening than the noise did. Is he standing at the top of the stairs listening? Does he know? Has some paternal sixth sense, a perversion of the bond we once had, alerted him to my betrayal? I don't breathe. I don't move. I simply wait for the world to end. Seconds stretch into an eternity. Nothing. No other sounds. Maybe it was just the house settling, the old wood groaning under its own weight. But the spell is broken. The cold resolve I felt is gone, replaced by a raw, frantic urgency. I can't stay here. But I can't leave this behind. Not now. Not when I know it's still happening. A plan, desperate and half-formed, ignites in my mind. I turn my phone's screen back on, the brightness still agonizingly low. I open the camera app. My hands are shaking again, but I force them steady. I aim the lens at the ledger, at Rivera's entry. The soft click of the digital shutter is a thunderclap in the stillness. I turn the page, click, and again, click. I photograph every entry from the last 2 years. Then I pick up the burner phone. I photograph the contacts list. I photograph the call log. And last, I bring the text message from C back onto the screen and capture it, the damning words immortalized in a handful of pixels. I have it. I have the proof, or at least a copy of it. It feels inadequate, a ghost of the real thing, but it's all I can take.
Leaving with the actual items is a death sentence. Their absence would be discovered by morning, and there would be only one suspect. I power down the burner phone, leaving the message from C technically unread, a ticking bomb waiting for my father to find it. I place it carefully back in its spot next to the neat stacks of cash. I close the ledger and slide it into its place. My fingers find the edge of the hidden panel. I push it shut. The click is soft, final. The secret is buried again, but it's not just in the desk anymore. It's on my phone. It's in my head. I have become the ledger. I back away from the desk, my bare feet silent on the Persian rug. I feel tainted, as if the corruption of the room has soaked into my clothes. As I slip through the study door and pull it gently shut behind me, the hallway seems different. The shadows are no longer just shadows. They are hiding places. The familiar silence of my home is no longer a comfort. It is the sound of a predator holding its breath. I have what I came for, but I feel no victory. I have only traded one prison for another. Before, I was trapped by ignorance. Now, I am trapped by knowledge. The path back to my room is not a retreat to safety, but a walk deeper into enemy territory, because I now understand the enemy sleeps just down the hall. Each step I take is a calculated risk. I move with a slowness that feels unnatural, placing my weight on the balls of my feet, avoiding the floorboards I know will betray me. The air in the hallway is cold, clinging to my skin, a stark contrast to the stifling heat that seems to be radiating from my own body. My phone is a lead weight in my pocket, the photos I took feeling less like digital files and more like physical evidence, heavy and damning. I reach the top of the grand staircase, my hand hovering over the smooth, worn oak of the banister. Below, the cavernous foyer is a pit of shadows, but a sliver of pale light cuts across the marble floor from the direction of the kitchen. My breath catches in my throat. He's awake. I should retreat, go back to my room, lock the door, and pretend this night never happened. But my body is already moving, one foot descending to the first step, then the next. A morbid curiosity pulls me forward, a need to see him, to look at his face now that I know the truth of what lies behind it. The journey down the stairs is the longest of my life. With every step, I expect the light to snap off or to hear his voice call out into the darkness, asking who's there. But nothing happens. I reach the bottom, my bare feet cold against the marble,
and inch towards the light. The smell of brewing tea hangs in the air, a scent so familiar, so tied to memories of childhood comfort that it feels like a physical assault. He's standing by the counter, his back to me, wearing the silk robe I got him for Christmas 2 years ago. He's looking out the large window into the blackness of the back garden, a steaming mug in his hands. He hasn't heard me. I could still turn back, disappear into the shadows, and he would never know. But then he speaks, his voice calm and low, not turning around. Couldn't sleep? The question is so simple, so paternal. It breaks the tension and replaces it with something far worse, a sickening intimacy. I have to force my throat to work. No, just thirsty. He turns then, and the face I see is the one I have known my entire life. The lines of concern around his eyes, the slight, tired smile. It's my father. It's the man who taught me to ride a bike and checked for monsters under my bed. It's a mask. He says, "Long day? These complex cases, they take their toll." He gestures with his mug towards the study. The paperwork never ends. He's talking about Rivera. He's standing here, drinking chamomile tea, talking about the toll of his work when I know for a fact that the only toll was the $250,000 he took to destroy a man's life. I feel a wave of nausea. I walk to the sink and turn on the tap, the sound of the running water a welcome noise to fill the awful silence. I cup my hands and drink, the cold water a shock to my system. Everything okay with the verdict? I ask, my voice sounding strained and thin to my own ears. I can feel his eyes on my back. "It was the right call," he says, his tone firm, judicial. "Justice was served." As he says the word justice, a faint, low hum vibrates through the floorboards. It's almost imperceptible, a bass note so deep you feel it more than you hear it. It comes from the study. My heart seizes in my chest. The burner phone. He looks down, a slight frown on his face. "This old house," he murmurs, more to himself than to me, always groaning. But I know it wasn't the house. It was a summons, a message from C, a problem that needed to be handled. He has no idea how close he is, how the entire architecture of his secret life is buzzing just a few feet away, its signal cutting right through this peaceful domestic scene. He finishes his tea and places the mug in the sink. "Well, try to get some rest. We have that charity brunch tomorrow." He pats my shoulder as he passes, a casual, loving gesture that makes my skin crawl. "Good night." I watch him walk away, his silhouette disappearing up the stairs. I stay frozen in the kitchen until I hear the soft click of his bedroom door closing. The silence that returns is different now. It's alive. The house isn't just an enemy territory. It's an active crime scene, and the criminals are still communicating. I finally make it back to my room, my legs trembling, and shut the door behind me, leaning against it as if to physically hold the world at bay. I pull out my phone, my hands shaking so badly I can barely unlock it. I open the gallery and look at the first picture, the ledger entry for Marco Rivera. The name, the number, the price. It's not just abstract information anymore. I just stood in the kitchen with the man who wrote it, who looked me in the eye and lied with the ease of a lifetime of practice. The proof on my phone feels heavier now, hotter. It's not enough to know. Knowing is just a prison of one. I have to do something. I swipe to the picture of the text message. Need to meet, usual place. He thinks the vibration was the house settling. He won't check the phone until morning. But C is waiting. And I realized with a sudden, terrifying clarity what my next move has to be. I can't go to the police. I can't trust anyone. I have to find out where the usual place is. I have to follow him. The decision solidifies in the silent dark of my room, not like a choice, but like a chemical reaction. Follow him. The words echo in my mind, simple and absolute, but the reality of them is a labyrinth of impossible logistics. I can't sleep. I sit on the edge of my bed, the photos on my phone glowing in the dark, a constant, sickly reminder. Every 5 minutes, I creep to my door and press my ear against the wood, listening. I'm listening for the sound of his footsteps, for the creak of the floorboard outside his study, for any sign that he's gone to answer the summons. But the house remains still, locked in its suffocating silence. The night stretches on, an eternity measured in the frantic beats of my own heart. I watch the moon trace a slow, silver path across my wall, thinking of all the nights I've lain in this bed, feeling safe under this roof, protected by him. It was all a lie. The foundation of my life wasn't built on integrity. It was built on a crime syndicate's payroll.
Dawn arrives not with a sense of relief, but with a new, sharper kind of dread. Morning means movement. It means I have to face him again, to sit across from him at the breakfast table and pretend that the world didn't shatter 12 hours ago. I force myself into the shower, the hot water doing nothing to warm the ice in my veins. I get dressed in the clothes I'd laid out for the brunch, a cheerful sundress that feels like a costume for a part I no longer know how to play. When I go downstairs, he's already in the kitchen, dressed in a crisp suit, reading the paper and sipping his coffee. The scene is so painfully normal, it feels like a hallucination. He looks up as I enter, and his eyes are tired, but he smiles. It's the same smile as last night, the same mask. "Morning," he says. "Sleep any better?" I manage a nod, my throat too tight for words. I pour myself a coffee, my hands steady only through sheer force of will. He has his phone on the counter beside him. He's seen the message. I can tell by the way his gaze keeps flicking towards it, a subtle tension in his jaw that I would never have noticed before. We make small talk over breakfast. He asks about my classes, about my friends. I answer in monosyllables, claiming I'm half asleep. Every word from his mouth is a splinter under my skin. He talks about the charity brunch, about the people we'll see there, about the importance of giving back to the community. The hypocrisy is so profound, so staggering, it almost makes me laugh. He's a pillar of the community built on the ruins of other people's lives. As he stands to rinse his coffee cup, I see my chance. My own phone is in my hand, hidden beneath the table. I had spent the last hour of the night installing the app, my fingers fumbling on the screen. It feels cheap and sordid, like something out of a spy movie, but it's the only way. He leaves his phone on the counter as he heads to the front hall to get his briefcase. I move in a blur, my heart hammering against my ribs. I pick up his phone, my thumb swiping through the familiar lock screen pattern I've seen 1,000 times. Find my friends. It's a ridiculous teenage tool, but he'd insisted we all use it years ago for safety. I share his location with myself, setting it to share indefinitely. The whole thing takes less than 10 seconds. I put the phone back just as he re-enters the kitchen, my back to him, pretending to be staring out the window. "Ready to go?" he asks. I turn, forcing a smile. "Actually, I think I'll meet you there. I have to finish up some reading first." He frowns slightly. "Don't be late. Your mother will have my head." I promise I won't be. He gives me a quick, paternal kiss on the forehead, and the touch feels like a brand. Then he's gone. The sound of his car starting in the driveway is a starting pistol. I wait, counting to 60, then pull out my phone. A small dot, his icon, is already moving down our street. It turns left, then right. It's not heading towards the hotel where the brunch is being held. It's heading left, towards the old industrial district, the part of town that's been decaying for decades. My breath catches. This is it. I don't take my own car. He would recognize it in a heartbeat. I call for a ride, my voice trembling as I give the address of a coffee shop a few blocks from his moving icon. The car arrives in minutes, and as we pull away from the curb, I feel a profound sense of crossing a threshold. There is no going back from this. The driver makes idle chit-chat, but I can't hear him over the roaring in my ears. I just watch the dot on my screen, a digital ghost leading me into the dark heart of my father's secret life. He slows, then stops. I tell the driver to pull over, that this is fine.
I get out, the air thick with the smell of rust and damp concrete. The dot on my phone is stationary, pulsing softly over a long brick building a block away. It's a place I know. We used to come here when I was a kid, to the flea market that operated out of the cavernous space on weekends. It's been abandoned for years. The usual place is a memory.
And as I stand there, staring at the boarded-up windows and graffiti-scarred walls, a black sedan with tinted windows pulls up to the loading bay doors, and my father gets out. He's not alone. A man emerges from the driver's side, a man I recognize instantly from newspaper photos. It's Carmine Falcone, head of the syndicate, my father's keeper. My blood turns to ice. It's not a figure of speech. It's a physical sensation, a painful freezing in my veins that locks my muscles in place. Carmine Falcone. He's a ghost from the 10 o'clock news, a name whispered in stories about the city's underbelly, and he's standing 10 feet away from my father. I duck behind a mountain of rotting pallets, the splintered wood digging into my back. My phone is still in my hand, the screen a beacon of damning light. I lower the brightness until it's barely visible and switch to the video camera. My thumb hovers over the record button, trembling so violently I'm afraid I'll drop it. This is insane. I'm a student. I go to brunch. I don't spy on mob bosses meeting with corrupt judges who happen to be my father. But the girl who goes to brunch is gone. She vanished the moment I opened that secret drawer. I press record. I have to get closer. The wind whips around the corner of the building, stealing their words. I creep from the pallets to a rusted-out dumpster, the stench of decay and stagnant water filling my lungs. I peer around the edge. Falcone is gesturing with a cigar, a thick plume of smoke obscuring his face for a moment. My father stands stiffly, his hands clasped behind his back, looking more like a defendant than a judge. I inch the phone forward, zooming in just enough to frame them both. Their voices are clearer now, gravelly and low. They're not talking about rivals or payoffs. They're talking about me. Falcone takes a slow drag from his cigar. She was at your office, he says, his voice a low rumble, asking the clerk about old case files, the Marino case. My heart stops. The files I was looking at yesterday. How could he possibly know? It's nothing, my father says, his voice tight. Academic curiosity. Falcone laughs, a short, ugly sound. Academic curiosity doesn't lead a judge's daughter to the archives. We have a rhythm, you and I, a balance. Things are tidy. Your daughter, she's not tidy. My father's shoulders slump a millimeter of movement that speaks of a colossal defeat. I'll handle it, he says. Falcone steps closer, invading his space, and my father doesn't flinch, but I can see the rigid terror in his posture. See that you do, Falcone says, his voice dropping to a near whisper that the phone's microphone barely catches, because my definition of handling it is permanent. We've kept you and your family safe and prosperous for a long time. It would be a shame to see that prosperity end. It would be a tragedy to see that family get smaller. The threat hangs in the air, thick and poisonous. Falcone claps my father on the shoulder, a gesture that is anything but friendly, and turns back to the car. My father stands frozen for a long moment, a statue of a man, before turning and walking stiffly back to his own vehicle. I stay crouched, my body screaming to run, but my mind knows I can't move until they are both gone. I stop the recording. The file saves. It's 2 minutes and 17 seconds of pure, unadulterated horror. I wait until the sound of both cars has faded completely before I allow myself to breathe. Then I'm scrambling, half running, half stumbling back to the main street, my lungs burning. I don't call another car. I just walk, putting distance between myself and that place, trying to walk away from the man my father really is. But I can't. I carry him with me, on my phone, in my blood. The walk home is a blur. The world outside is a smear of meaningless color. The only thing that's real is the cold weight of the phone in my pocket and the echo of Falcone's threat. Get smaller. He wasn't just talking about my father. He was talking about my mother. He was talking about me. My father isn't just a criminal. He's a hostage. And he's made us his fellow prisoners. By the time I reach my street, the sun is high in the sky. His car is in the driveway. He's back from the brunch that he never attended. I enter the house through the back door. It's quiet. My mother must be in the garden. I walk through the kitchen, past the table where we had our farcical breakfast, and head straight for his study. The door is ajar. I push it open. He's sitting behind his desk, the one with the hidden drawer, staring at nothing. He looks 100 years old. He doesn't seem surprised to see me. It's as if he was waiting. I don't say a word. I walk to his desk, take out my phone, and set it down in front of him. I press play. The video begins. The tinny sound of his own voice, followed by Falcone's gravelly threat, fills the cathedral-like silence of the room. He doesn't look at the screen. He just looks at me. His face, the mask of the righteous judge, doesn't just fall, it implodes. It collapses into a landscape of pure, bottomless despair. The video plays to the end. The sound of a car door slamming, then silence. I don't feel triumph. I don't feel vindicated. I just feel empty. I have it all now. The ledger, the photos of the burner phones, and now this, a video of a mob boss threatening my father over my own curiosity. The evidence is absolute. I hold his entire life in the palm of my hand. I can go to the authorities and they would have to listen. It would detonate a scandal that would obliterate his career, his legacy, and put him in prison for the rest of his life. Or I can do nothing. I can bury it all and live with the knowledge of what he is, trapped in this silent, gilded cage with him, knowing that a man like Carmine Falcone is always watching from the shadows. The power is mine now, and it's heavier than any secret. It's the power to destroy him or to let the monster he serves win. I look at the broken man who was once my father, the great judge, now just a prisoner in his own expensive suit. The phone on his desk is a bomb, and my finger is on the trigger. He's waiting for me to make a choice. He put my life in danger with his greed and his weakness, but releasing this tape could be a death sentence for us all at the hands of Falcone's syndicate long before any trial could begin. Justice or survival. There is no third option. If you're me, holding the evidence that could either imprison your father or sign his death warrant, what would you choose? Let us know in the comments.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. I post new stories every day.